Hey gang!
Hi.
Oh, look at that. Hello, beautiful people. It always makes me feel so happy when I see a massive screen full of people arriving. Thank you so much for being here today, folks. Um, I'm conscious that there's a bunch of people who don't know who I am, so we'll start there. I am definitely not the main event today. We're going to be joined in about 5 minutes by Michael Lennington, who is the co-author of The 12-Week Year, a really phenomenal book on business planning. For those of you who don't know who I am, my name's Pete Moles, and I have been running a networking community for the last 6 years. It's gone very, very fast. We meet online a couple of times every month on the first and third Wednesdays. Usually it's at the crack of a sparrow's knacker at 7:30 in the morning, but today we're welcoming one of our friends from over the pond, so we decided to push it out to 2 o'clock in the afternoon, a much more reasonable time for many people. So we would love to know where you're from, because there's a bunch of people who we don't know who have come from various places. Let us know in the chat where you're coming from. Michael is going to be joining us in about 4 minutes time or so. Fingers crossed. Is he in the waiting room yet, sir? Yay, he's here! We might be able to start early. Quick show of hands. How many people have actually read the 12-week year? Has anyone read the 12-week year? One, two people. I know my friend Kelly has read it because she has been waxing lyrical about it for the last few months. So we've not got many people that have read it. So why did we bring Michael to you of all of the people that we could have bought? So our community is all about adding value, and we're really focused on finding great speakers who have got something to say to bring them to our community and enlighten and incite. When I take part in things for Oxlep, so I live in Oxfordshire and I'm a member of the local enterprise partnership for Oxfordshire. When we look at what small business owners are looking for, the first most important thing that people say is, I want to get better at growing my business. I want to learn and understand how to acquire new customers. That's the first thing that people ask for. And then the second most popular thing that people ask for is, I want to get better at writing business plans. I want to get better at the strategy and doing plans. So I looked around. I've read an awful lot of business and personal development books over the last six or 7 years. And the 12-week year is up there as probably the number one book for creating plans that are actually actionable. So that's why we're bringing Michael to the stage. So the way that it's going to work is we're going to do fireside chat. So I've got some questions that I've pre-prepared for Michael. And then we're going to give you guys the opportunity to ask questions, and then he's going to ask us a question at the end. We're going to run for just over an hour till about 3:15. And the last thing that I need to tell you before we let Michael in is, if you stick around till the end, we've got a copy of the 12-week year, which we're going to give away to someone. So we've got a spin wheelie thing at the end that, if you stick around, we'll put your name into the draw and we'll pick a winner and send out a book to you. Should we let Michael in? Let's let Michael in. All right.
Okay, I'll admit him now.
Perfect.
Go. There he is.
There he is.
Waiting for us to get started. There we go. I'm going to spotlight the pair of you. So give me 2 seconds. Spotlight. And then I need to find Michael quickly. Oh, sorry, 2 secs.
I should have bought my Bob Burg mug, really, shouldn't I?
There he is. There we go.
Hello, mate.
Hello, how are you doing, Peter?
Really good, my friend, really good. How about yourself? Is it still stormy there?
No, it's kind of nice today. It's cooled down and it's a beautiful day outside. Looking forward to getting out there.
Fabulous. Yeah, it's a beautiful day here, this side of the pond as well, to be honest. So, Michael, welcome to the gang. Everyone is really excited to have you here. I've just been giving everyone a little bit of an overview of who you are and your book. And I've got a bunch of questions that I've prepared, and we've already encouraged the guys to put some questions into the chat, which we're going to then feed into as well. But we'll get straight into it. I suppose my first question to you, Michael, is why did you write the book in the first place?
That's a good question. The reason we wrote our book is because we were a small consulting firm, Brian Moran and I, business partners back in the day, and still are actually. And we had a hard time explaining what we did to prospects. And so rather than have a 10, 15-minute conversation trying to explain what we did, we decided to write a short book about it because we had a hard time kind of articulating the value proposition we had. So we wrote the book to kind of communicate that and, to save us time having to explain things. But we named the first book Periodization, 12 Weeks to Breakthrough. And that was even worse than having no book because nobody knew what the heck periodization was. So we renamed it the 12-week year later on. But it was really just a way to communicate to prospects.
Fabulous, fabulous. So obviously I've read the book a couple of times. There are a number of people in the room I've established that haven't read the book before. So it would be amazing if you could give us kind of the core concepts of the book.
Absolutely. So at its essence, the 12-week year is a different way of looking at time. And as we work with our clients in small businesses to medium-sized businesses, what we found was it was very difficult to get their full attention and commitment early on in the year. But at the end of the year, whatever their fiscal year ended, we'd always see an uptick in activity. Sometimes 40% or more of the results were happening in the last 10, 12 weeks of the year. And so what we wanted to do is figure out how we could spread that focus across the year as opposed to just once a year. Because earlier in the year, if it's the first quarter of the year, people would be maybe behind their goals. It's the end of January, they're behind their goals, and they weren't too worried about it. They weren't happy, but they weren't worried about it because there was this belief that I can make it up next quarter. And that carried all the way to the end of the first quarter, the second quarter, sometimes even into the third quarter. And so that thinking of I can make up the time is really unproductive because you can't, right? There's no making it up. There's no getting back what you lost because all the time that you had available to you is gone forever, right? So if you're not acting with urgency for the first 12 weeks or the first 24 weeks of the year, you can't get that back. And all the prospects that you could have served, all the opportunities that were there have been served or taken by somebody else. So all that stuff's just gone. So you can have a great, second quarter or third quarter, make it up, get back on track, but you can't ever recover the lost capacity. So that unproductive thinking about annualized goals, right? So I look at my success and my failures hanging in the balance on a 12-month cycle. If I hit my goals at the end of the year, if I'm working for a company, I might get recognized, I might get promoted, I might get a raise, I might get a bonus, I might get a trip or something like that. If I miss those numbers, the opposite of those things happen. And if I own a business, right, I'm really excited that I hit my annual goals and I celebrate that, and it should be celebrated, but I'm missing the fact that I could have been hitting those goals every 12 weeks as opposed to just over the 12-month cycle. And so that's really the problem we were trying to solve. And that's why we wrote the book. And I think if you look at the real core of the 12-week year, it's just a different way of looking at time. I mean, that's ultimately it. The way we think causes the way we behave, which creates the results we get. And when we think about success and failure hanging in the balance every 12 months, it creates some positives at the end of the year, but there's a lot of negatives across the year.
Yeah, so. I love that. I love that. You talk in the book a lot about getting more done in 12 weeks than other people do in 12 months.
Yeah.
It's a kind of common theme that runs throughout the book. But for the uninitiated, that possibly sounds like just a lot of hard work, mate.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I'm already flat out. Right.
And potentially quite stressful as well. So can you talk to us about what we mean by getting more done in 12 weeks than others get done in 12 months?
Yeah, I mean, that ultimately getting as much done in 12 weeks as others do in 12 months is possible, but it's in a narrowly defined set of goals, right? It's not everything you might do. It's just some clearly defined goals that are fairly narrow. Really what we find is that people aren't trying to work 4 times harder. What they're doing is they're working on the most important things, but they're doing those things more consistently because there's a sense of an imminent deadline at the end of the 12 weeks, which creates a sense of focus and, urgency, but not unproductive urgency. It's the positive urgency of of needing to get things done and knowing that they have to get done. So it really doesn't create stress, but it does sound like it would. But when you actually dive into it, you realize it's not about getting everything done. It's just getting the important things done. And that actually, we've been told by our clients, and it's true for us as well, is that when you're making progress on the things you know are most important, when you're getting that stuff done, you go home at the end of the day and you realize, yeah, I got the big things done that I need to get done today. That level of stress actually drops. And there may be some unimportant or less important things that didn't get done, but when you're moving the things that really need to be moved, it creates a sense of success every day. So it lowers it in a sense.
Yeah,
So.
I completely agree. So how do you know which stuff to focus on?
Well, that's the real question, isn't it? It's a hard question to answer quickly, but it ties to what's important to you in life, right? So what really matters to you in your life? What are the things, who is the person you want to be? What are the things you want to do in life? What are the things you want to have in life? And be really clear on that, or as clear as you can get, because sometimes things pop up and say, well, I'd really like that instead. But it's just having a clear vision of what you'd like from the moment you are in right now, what you'd like your future to look like. And once you figure that out, then we help people create a 3-year vision, which is, the aspirational vision is unbound by time, but the 3-year vision is more specific. And if I'm running the business, it may be, what's my revenue I want to be generating 3 years from now? What kind of time off do I want to have? What's my ideal client? How many of those clients do I have in profile? All that stuff, right? Do I have a team? Who's on my team? How is the team performing? What's the culture? Those kind of questions that can be answered in an aspirational way 3 years out. And then that 3-year vision creates this clarity for me about what I'm trying to do every 12 months. And then every 12 weeks, I set goals towards that. And I set up tactics to accomplish those goals. And every 12 weeks, I'm kind of chunking and making progress towards that vision. So what I want to do and what's most important, it's got to be tied to my vision. And that ends up showing up in my goals every 12 weeks. And then the tactics, because they're all aligned with that longer term vision. So theoretically, on week 6 on Wednesday, the tactic that I wanted to get done today in my plan is the most important thing in my life, because by my own definition, here's the vision of what my life looks like 3 years from today is where I want to be. And this year is where I want to be. Here's where I need to be at the end of the 12 weeks. And this tactic on Wednesday of week 6 is part of that plan. So, one of the things about the 12-week year, and I'm talking fast, I apologize, because I don't want to do a whole 2-day training in 10 minutes. One of the things about the 12-week year is it creates that sense of clarity about what's most important. And as a result of that, I can connect the day with the long term. And I think it's a real powerful thing to do, because a lot of us are just kind of grinding through our days. And it happens to us too. I mean, Brian and I still do that, but at least we know that we have this path that's clear, that's aligned with what we want. And I don't have to figure out what's important today, because I already kind of know.
Really, really, really interesting. I'm going to segue onto a question that I was going to ask later on, but it's relevant to the piece that you've just been talking about, vision, right? It's so important for people, humans, business owners. What you think about, you move towards, and you get. In my experience, lots of people struggle. Lots of small business owners struggle with the concept of sitting down, devoting the time. Actually, it's as much about devoting the time to it as anything else. But lots of people struggle to come up with that. What do I really want? And I wonder whether you've got any advice for people who might be feeling that way. I think all of us probably understand in one way, shape, or form that having a vision for the future is important. But if I was going to bet, I would say that, proportionally, there's not that many people who have got a really clearly defined vision. So how would you encourage people to go about creating that vision? What process should they go through?
First thing is to think differently about it, right? So a lot of times people think that vision's fluff. It's kind of this, exercise in I won't say what popped in my head, but it's just this exercise in kind of a waste of time. And because it's just fluff. And I think you have to look at vision as having utility, as having a purpose, because if you have a vision with a purpose, there's this utility of a direction, right? I know where I want to go. And I could do a lot of different things. I have choice in my day about, almost an infinite number of things I could do with my time. And that choice is critical, though, because I have to have a reason for the choices I make. And if we don't have a longer term vision, then our short term is going to be dominating our choices, right? So my shortest term goals, the ones that I'm most aware of, are going to dominate my choices. So if I like chocolate cake, I like, a good glass of wine, those kinds of things, and those make good sense in a lot of cases. But if those are my choices being driven by these short term desires, I'm kind of like managing my business by brownie in motion. I'm just kind of popping around, right? And I think it's important to have a direction, because if you want to build momentum, you want to build some progress, right? Something that causes to pull you forward. A longer vision is absolutely required, and so that belief in utility is important. So that's the first thing. The second thing, I think, is that for some people, vision comes really easy. For other people, they struggle with it. And it's really finding a way of thinking about the future that matches what you want. And I think that matches your style. And we have this exercise called Have, Do, Be. And it's and you probably have heard of it before, but it's just listing out all the things you want to have in life in the time that's left to you on earth, all the things that you want to do in life, and all the things that you want to be. And for some people that resonates. For other people, that have stuff kind of leaves them cold because it seems materialistic, and it doesn't have to be, but it kind of feels that way. But it's also delayed. So the things that I want to have, if they're big and audacious things, then there's a time gap between where I am and where I want to be. And that's difficult to close. So sometimes what resonates with people is the things that I want to do. I love to travel. I love to have free time with my family. I love to impact my clients in this way. And so then maybe that's the piece that resonates with you. Or for a lot of people, it's who you are, who you want to be. I want to be this kind of a father and this kind of a husband. I want to be this kind of a leader. I want to be this kind of a friend, and being clear on that be thing. And the cool thing about the be part of the Have, to Be exercise is I can be that person like this. I can just decide I'm going to be that husband. I'm going to be that leader. I'm going to be that friend, and behave in ways that replicate that. So in a sense, finding a way to connect with vision, whether it's the things you want to have, things you want to do, or be, or all that stuff, I think is really important. So I would give yourself maybe 10 minutes and list all the things that you want to have in life. Just lay them out, whatever they are. No judgment. I mean, if you want to have a sports car, that's fine. If you want to have, good relationships, that's fine. But all the things you want to have. And just let that list flow, right? And then go to all the things you want to do in life. I want to travel. I want to swim the Great Barrier Reef, or whatever the things that are in your plan or in your mind. And then all that stuff is just a long list. And then you go to the things that you want to be, the character you want to have, and all that stuff. And just list these long lists, right? And when you get stuck, stick with it, because sometimes the superficial stuff is easy. But as you kind of get deeper, things mean more. So just sit with the list, and then set it down, go away, come back at some point and look at it. What are the common themes across each of those three things? And those might be good fodder for your long-term aspirational vision. And then at least that's a starting point. Now, again, I'm trying not to do a training, Peter, but you asked me, and I'm a trainer at heart. So
train away, my friend. It's you're speaking to me, and it resonates so unbelievably deeply. One of the things, you don't know this, but one of the things that I have been doing for the last, I guess, 4 or 5 years is running a workshop sporadically, very sporadically, when I feel like it, called The Power of Dreams, where we bring a bunch of people together to spend time focusing on the things that they really want to achieve in their life, and all sorts of things, all of the things that you've talked about. But we get them to, ultimately, by the end of the day, they've created a bucket list, and then created a set of goals that hang off of that bucket list. So the most important things in the next year, 3 years, and 10 years, we get them to create a plan on how to achieve it. And just hearing you talk like that, it just makes every bone in my body tingle. It's great. So back to the 12-week year. What is it? Why is a 12-week planning process better than an annualized kind of start on New Year's resolution? This year I'm going to do this. Why do you think that having kind of 4 chunks of New Year's resolutions is better than the one?
That's a great question. Ultimately, it's because you can't see the end from the beginning. And so what does that mean? It means that if I look across the next 12 months, and I'm sitting here in January 1 or whatever, late December, and I'm looking at the next 12 months, I don't have perfect information, clearly. I don't know what's going to be happening globally. Is there a new pandemic coming? Is our economy going to be better? Is it going to be worse? What's the culture going to be like 12 months from now? I mean, it's changing so rapidly. What's technology? What's AI going to be doing 12 months from now? There's just so much uncertainty, right? And because of that level of uncertainty, it's extremely difficult to plan for any time into the future, but especially in 12 months, because with all that uncertainty, you cannot know what the actions you need to be taking. Let's say you're sitting in January, what the actions you need to be taking next November are. If you guess and you guess correctly, that's great, but it's just a guess and it's just luck because you just don't know. You may have a different team. If you have a team that's working for you, some people may have left, some people have come on, you've got some new talent, there's new priorities. So you can't plan at the action level detail. So what that forces annualized plans to be, whether you're a large organization or you're just a one-person shop, what that forces annualized plans to be is this kind of objective-based sort of plan. It's goals, targets, and objectives, right? So that's what my 12-month plan looks like. And even if I get down to the tactical level, because there's so much drift in the world, your plan is going to be incomplete. It's going to be obsolete in 12 months or 12 weeks. So you really can't plan at the tactical level. And so, but a 12-week year, because it's such a shorter time frame, there's a lot higher level of predictability across the 12 weeks than there is across the 12 months. So I can get down to the actions. I can get down to the tactics in a plan. So I set a goal, which looks like an annualized plan. But beneath that goal, I've got the specific actions I'm going to take week 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way through week 12. And typically those changes don't the changes in the world don't impact that plan. So I can actually get to tactics. And you can't execute targets, goals, and objectives. You can have them, but you can't execute them. The only thing you can execute are actions. And that's what creates a 12 weeks plan's power. The other thing is that because in an annualized plan, you've got all this time, when you're missing your numbers in January, you're thinking, hey, I'll make it up next quarter. Right? Not happy, but you're thinking that I'll make it up next quarter. And that same kind of I'll make it up thinking goes across the year until it gets to the end of the year. And that's when we see the spike in activity. So really missing out if you go with this kind of annualized thinking and planning, because your thinking is going to be flawed and your actions are going to be not well directed.
Yeah, great point. So one of the things that you talked about there was you having the 12-week year, and you talked about the goal, obviously, and the strategies and the tactics, and having this kind of breakdown. If you're going to do this in this week, this in this week, this in this week. In my experience, having worked with hundreds of business owners on plans and quarterly business plans over the last 6 years, what I'm finding is that to succeed, we really need to keep it simple.
Yeah.
Because when I started out, I followed, elaborate Gantt charts, and everyone was saying, I'm going to do all of these things, and then everything's going to happen in week 1 because everyone overestimates the amount of things that they can do in week 1 and so on and so forth. And over time, I've really realized that we just need to chunk it down and chunk it down and chunk it down to get to the bare bones. I would love you to share the benefit of your wisdom around that statement.
Yeah, I think it's our view is that less is more when it comes to planning. The fewer goals, the better. And so what we tell people is have as few goals as possible, but as many as necessary. And the same thing goes for the actions for each of those goals, the tactics for those goals, as few as possible, but as many as necessary. And so what does that mean? It means that there's probably 100 things you could do or more to move you towards your goal, but you can't really create a plan for 100 things. I mean, you can create the plan, but you can't execute it, right? So, the intention of the planning process is to set yourself up for success. And you have limited capacity. So if your plan requires your whole week because there's so many tactics in it, you're really going to struggle. You've got to narrow that plan down. So it's just a few tactics. And if it's a lot of complexity in your plan with lots of contingencies in the plan, it becomes a very complex thinking process. You're trying to lock in stone in week 1, and the world does drift, even though it's just 12 weeks. So I think that the best plans are as skinny as possible, because of all the other things we have to do, all of the unknown things that pop up. And in general, there's the Pareto rules at play, right? So you've got just a few tactics are driving most of your results. And that's where you want to get to, is that 20% of the tactics that drive 80% of the results.
Yeah, fabulous. there's some questions that have come in, so I'm going to break away from my pre predetermined set of questions that I've been asking, and we'll go a bit rogue. So the lovely Renee Watson has asked how this approach, the 12-week year approach, works for neurodivergent individuals.
Okay, I love that. Well, I am no psychologist, but what I think is that to the best of my ability, I want to know every day and every week what's most important for me to get done. And so within the context of the 12-week year, that's really what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to get down to clarity on what I need to do, what's the most powerful thing I can do. In the context of how I do that, how I schedule it, how I think, all that stuff is up to me. And I think the 12-week year is pretty flexible in terms of how it can be applied. We're not rigid lockstep with the 12-week year. I mean, in general, it's just kind of how we normally solve problems. Our goal is our problem, right? Here's my problem. I got to reach my goal. I got to move from where I am to my goal. That's my problem. And my plan is my solution to that problem. So however I know I can act, however I know that I'm gonna be most responsive to this plan, I do that. And so I put those tactics in my plan, because my problem and my solution is, the problem isn't unique perhaps, but my solution is unique to me. And I know I didn't really answer your question correctly, because there's a lot of different types of neurodivergence, I would
Yeah, yeah.
suspect. So it would depend. Like, for example, if you're if you have Asperger's, for example, because I have that in my family, you can set yourself up to not have to do some of the things that you're not really comfortable doing, or to leverage yourself in different ways to do those things. So I think you can, the plan is up to you. So I think you can plan around whatever you need to, right? I mean, everybody's neurodivergent, right? There's nobody's perfectly normal, I don't think. So
Very true.
Yeah.
And I guess I'm just going to add a little bit of weight to what you said there, because as someone who's a bit spicy myself, I find myself heading down all sorts of rabbit holes and chasing all sorts of shiny things all the time. And the thing that I find about having a 12-week year, 13-week year, is that if it's not on my list, I've got 6 goals for our business that we run to, and if it's not aligned to one of those 6, it goes onto my big ideas board, and it stays there until the next 12-week year cycle, where we look at it and go, is it worth exploring this? So from someone with first-hand experience, Renee, I would suggest that in my experience, it's a really good concept and good thing to do.
That's right. I want to add real quickly, just because you said something. That 12-week year, you don't try to get everything done that you want to get done in 12 weeks. You delay some things. You've got things that are plans and waiting, goals and waiting. Just like you said, you've got this board of goals and waiting. A powerful, great concept. I want to point that out. That's really good.
Thank you, mate. Great. Good job, Pete. So Kelly Druitt, our digital nomad in the room. She's currently driving cross country in her whilst her husband drives, and she's kind of locked onto this. But she has asked a couple of questions. Thanks, Kel. The first one is, does Michael have any tips on scheduling whilst traveling?
Yeah. You want me to answer that one first?
Go for it.
Okay. So first of all, you're living my dream. I love the idea of traveling and working. So great. Good job. The reality is everybody's got different constraints on their schedules. And so during a week, we have this thing called time blocking. And it's one of the disciplines of the 12-week year. There's 5 disciplines: vision, planning, process control, scorekeeping, and time use. And really time use, it's time allocation. But anyway, the thing about it is that when I start my week, I'll create my time blocks. So I know what's coming up in the week. I know, so if I'm driving, I know that probably don't want to schedule a lot of, certain types of activity. If I know I'm going to be stationary, I can do other things at that point. So I'll just move my tactics around, and I'll schedule them in those different time blocks, so that I'm setting myself up to match my week. And it's going to be, for you, it's probably going to be different. You may be traveling to a destination and then staying there for a while. So it depends on, what place you're in your travels. But I think it's just finding a way to be predictive about when the best time blocks are for you, and then blocking that time out. And we have more than one time block. I'm not going to train that right now, but depending on what you're doing, you just put those blocks at the appropriate times, and hopefully that's flexes for your needs.
Yeah, amazing. So she's then gone on to say that she has made scheduling work for her jobs and for herself. And the next question is, how can she encourage her team to schedule in the same way?
That's a really good question. So there's the individual path of the 12-week year, then there's a leadership path. And the leadership path is one of example primarily, because there's a shadow effect that you have as the leader. And so what you say for people to do and what you do, of those two things, what you do, your behaviors drive what they see and what they hear more powerfully than your words do. So just, if you're going to ask the team to do X, then do X. If it's part of your role, but either way, show up the way as a leader that you want them to show up as individuals. And then the other thing is that what I would do is I would share visioning and goal setting around the business with my team, and I encourage them to have their own personal visions, their own personal goals as well outside of the business, so that they see the power of the 12-week year for them, and they can use it for other things other than the business. And getting their minds involved with it not only creates ownership, setting the goals and vision, but it also pushes the leader if you let it. So we've had leaders tell us, hey, my team thought we could do all this great stuff, and I didn't think we are going to get there, but I thought, well, we'll let them have their head, we'll miss the numbers, and then they'll understand. Well, they actually hit the number. And this is a specific example, but it's emblematic of a lot of them. And she was surprised that happened. So let your team push it. And so the more that your team has taken ownership, and the more you listen to them, we had a client who told us that they wanted to do 4 times as much in 12 weeks. They wanted to get a year's worth of stuff done in 12 weeks, which is what the title says anyway. And the leader went to his team and said, hey, this is what I'd like to do. You guys on board? He said, yeah, we're on board with that, but here's what we'd have to stop doing, and here's what we'd have to start doing. So the planning was actually easier, because they contributed to the plan. They took greater ownership, and the story is they hit their goals. They did as much in 12 as they had in 20 or 12 months. So.
Yeah, it's an amazing example. I think so. Going back to the way that we run things, what we deliberately have 6 goals per quarter, and then I allocate ownership of 2 goals to each team member. So that the goals of the business are being directly contributed. So my team members have 2 goals, and they directly contribute to my 6 essentially. So thank you. You talked about the 5 core components very briefly. You ran through them in a heartbeat. Why don't you talk around those 5 core components a little bit?
So Brian and I have been in consulting all of our adult lives, and I think we've picked up a lot of ideas from a lot of our places and sort of put everything together into the 12-week year. So the 5 disciplines represent what we feel are the fundamentals of high performance and execution. And the order of them actually makes sense, because you kind of flow from first discipline through to the 5th discipline, and they kind of go like that. So the first discipline is vision, and it's the first place in life that we either limit our results or we expand on them. Our brains, what we believe we can accomplish, really is our biggest barrier. It's not external stuff. It's the stuff between our ears. And so at that vision level, we want people to push back the boundaries of what they see as possible for themselves, to the point that their vision scares them a little bit. Not terror, but scary, right? Even terror might work too, but there's got to be some anxiety, because as we think about things we don't know how to do, our brains will say, wait a minute, that's scary. I don't know how to get up in front of a crowd and speak, or whatever that is that I have my fear about. So you want your brain to push back the boundaries, because that's the first place you limit your results. So a vision has to be expansive. It also has to be something you have an emotional connection to, that you really, really want to make happen. Don't just have a vision that somebody else would approve of, right? If you want a sports car, put it in your vision. If you want to hang out on the beach for 6 months, put that in your vision. Whatever that is, make it the stuff that you want to have, that you really enjoy. So you've got that emotional connection, because the plan and the tactics in the plan, some of that looks like work, and work is unpleasant often. It doesn't always have to be, but some stuff we don't like to do, and it's sometimes difficult, and we'd rather just sit down and have a beer and watch a sports game or something. But that desire to do the work has to be coming from somewhere, because if we desire not to do the work, we probably won't for very long. So that vision creates this kind of clarity where instead of seeing the cost of my effort right now, I connect that effort with that vision. So there's a purpose behind it. That's what vision is about. Now, there's a lot of tools, and I can spend 90 minutes talking about that, and you'd kill me. But that's why we do vision first, because it's the first place that we really limit our results. The second discipline is planning, and it's because a vision without a plan is kind of like a pipe dream. So we want to get a clarity about what has to happen this 12 weeks in order to make progress towards that vision. So I'll set my goals that represent the progress that I want to make this 12 weeks towards my vision, even if it's not huge, right? It can be a small thing. If I'm a long way away from some of the stuff in my vision, it's just a step maybe, but I'll set my goals that way. And then I'll build out the tactics to make those things happen. So I'll put goals and tactics tied to that vision. And again, I want to make that as compact as possible. Then the third discipline is what we call process control. Brian named it that, I didn't. But that third discipline involves some changes in your environment to keep you on track with your execution. So most of us, even with a vision and a plan, it's like flipping a coin. We're not necessarily going to hit our goals. So what we want to do is push back against all the things that are kind of keeping us stuck, right? And so if we have some triggers in our environment that cause us to behave differently, or remind us what our highest aspirations are, then we'll more than likely take better action on that plan. So we create a weekly plan that we print out, having a tangible written plan that's a piece of paper that you carry with you. It's like a paper conscience throughout the week. The best weekly plans, as you print them out on Monday morning, the best weekly plans have got a couple of coffee stains on them, and a couple of phone numbers scribbled on them, but they're things you carry with you. And as you look for what to do, that paper is going to remind you. Now, I know that that's kind of countercultural, that most people want to have it on electronic stuff, and that's fine. But the problem is with your phones, you can turn it upside down, you can shut it down, and it's not necessarily reminding you what you want to do. So I recommend the paper plan. The second thing, though, on that weekly execution routine that sort of process control, which is what Brian calls it. Process control is the weekly accountability meeting. So being in connection with some other human being who is also trying to accomplish big goals, that's a key part of it. So weekly plan and an accountability partner or team. And then the fourth discipline is scorekeeping. And that's really, everybody knows what scorekeeping is. A lot of people shy away from it because they feel like if I didn't score well, if my numbers don't look good, it's somehow a personal indictment against me, right? And so people avoid scorekeeping. But if you don't track, you can't manage it. So you got to know what's happening before you can change it. And so scorekeeping is vitally important, because 12 weeks happens like that. And if you're not tracking some important measures, you can't adjust on the fly and fix things. And so even if you don't like measurement, this is not an indictment of your character. It's just a measure of, are you getting your plan tactics done, and is your plan working? Those are the two things we're tracking. Are you executing, and are you making progress? And it's just information. It's like if you're driving your car and your gas gauge is towards empty, you don't beat yourself up for that, right? You don't pull over the side of the road and just say, what a bad person I am. I'm a terrible car owner. No, you don't do that. You just go to the gas station and you fill it up, right? So that's the same thing with measurement in the 12-week year. It's just information that tells you what to do next. And then the last discipline is time use. Everything you get done happens in the context of the time you spend on it. So if you don't spend time on a relationship, you're not going to have a good relationship. You don't spend time in your business, you're going to have a bad business. And so what we want to do is make sure we allocate our time every week to the most important things. You'll never get everything done. There's an illusion for some people that they can get everything done. It's impossible. You never will. You got to let that go. But you can get the most important things done most often. And so we want to carve out time every week to get the strategic stuff done, our stuff on our plan, on a carve out time, so that we can, what I call a buffer block, so I can handle all the administrative. And I'm not going to do the time use training. It's just, you block out time so that you can control the administrative stuff, you get the to-dos and all that stuff. You can control the execution, the strategic stuff. And then we also build in every week a breakout block. It's kind of a mini vacation in the middle of your week. Sometimes you may have one, may have two, where you let business go. You just kind of clear your mind. Maybe you go out and sit in the park and feed the pigeons, or you read a book or whatever. You just don't do any work. So you get a kind of mental vacation in the middle of your week. So those three things: strategic block, buffer block, and a breakout block. I know I probably didn't even make sense explaining that. There's more to it than what I talked about.
Mate, there was so much gold in what you just said. I'm so glad that this is being recorded, because that was just wonderful.
Thank you.
To your last point, and you and I have talked about this before, Michael. To your last point about the feeding the pigeons on the 13th week,
Mm-hmm. Oh.
the thing that I have historically struggled with the 12-week year over the 90-day plan, which is what I use in my business, same concept. It's just not having that break at the end. Is that I don't want to have my holiday on the 13th week every 3 months. Convince me that I'm doing it wrong.
Okay. No, yeah, I think the thing is, there's really no way to do the 12-week year wrong other than not to do it at all, because it needs to fit you, right? And so Brian and I, both of us like time off. And with the time, both of us lived in Michigan. And Michigan, I don't know if you know the states very well, but Michigan is cold 12 months out of the year, but really cold for 9 months out of the year. And so the summers are really important. And so we took the whole month of August off one summer, both of us, same time, the whole business. So what that meant was we had to work really, really hard in June and could work really, really hard in September, but we took August off. And now we still got email, we still got, calls and things like that, but we weren't doing any work in the business and we took it off. So you can set this up however you want to set it up. I've got a buddy who uses the 12-week year, and he has a condo in Vail. And so what he does is he plans his life around the ski season, right? So he ends his year just as the snow is getting deep enough to ski in November in Colorado. And then he takes this 6-week period where he just doesn't do anything and he goes out skiing. And then his next 12-week year starts after he gets back from that. And then he's got another one at spring break where he goes back out and skis again. So however you want to set it up is up to you. I mean, there's no, we didn't make the rules. You must do this, you must do that. It's just, we talked about some of the principles. But I will say one thing is that the 13th week, even though it may not be your vacation, it's important to use that 13th week in a way that helps you to reset for the next 12-week year. And that is to do a review of how you've executed. You really fundamentally look back and say, how did I do? And be honest with yourself, because you can lie to yourself and feel good, but then your results are going to be bad. So you really want to be honest with yourself. What didn't work? But also recognize and celebrate what did work. The 12-week year celebration is really important, because if you don't celebrate your progress, you really don't appreciate how far you've come. So celebrate, identify breakdowns, and then take that learning and put it into your next 12-week plan. Because every 12-week year, the 12-week year is an execution system, pure and simple, but it's also a learning system. Because if you think about it, I got this goal, here's my problem, my plan is my problem solution to hit that goal. And so did that problem solution work or not? It did, but this didn't really work so well. So I now change that out. Every 12 weeks, it's like I'm getting better and better at my craft. So if you pay attention, it's also a learning system. So I think that 13th week is important. Even though it may not be when you do your real vacation, it's still carve out some time to recognize and celebrate. Maybe it's a day, maybe it's an afternoon, but it's just to recognize, that you did it, and then you learn from it and then reset.
Yeah, I love it. Great. Thank you. So Renee's been busy. My gosh, I've got 3 more questions from her, but there's a couple of other questions that have come in. So Sarah Denner's asked, you've talked about thinking, having, being, doing. How does how you and your people feel feature within the 12-week year?
That's a great question. So all models are wrong, some are useful. We don't. So our and that wasn't my quote. I think it was Box that said it, but it doesn't matter. What I'm saying is that there's this kind of thinking and feeling piece. So we have this model. This is our results in life. And it's not ours, but the results in life are derived from our actions. So we take an action, it creates some kind of result in our life. Everybody gets that, right? There's action and there's a reaction. But why do we act the way we act? Well, the way we act is driven by our thinking. But our thinking in our model includes your feelings and all that stuff that just kind of causes us to act the way we act. And so we do talk about our thinking, but feelings are a key component of that. So things that I love to do, I'm more than likely going to do more often. Things I hate doing, I'm probably going to avoid. So, it's just being aware of those things and figuring out how to execute anyway.
Delegating some of that stuff to other people.
Yeah, that's the other thing. You don't have to do it. Yeah, perfect example.
All right, good stuff. Renee says, why did you settle on 12 weeks? What evidence did you have that this was the perfect time frame?
That's a really good question. What we were in corporate.
She's full of them, mate. She's very clever, that lady.
Yeah. George Box there. Thank you, Fiona. Now that I read Fiona's comment, ask that question again. I'm getting old. So I get
That's exactly what I would do. It's like, oh, hang on, I've gone down the rabbit hole. She said, why did you settle on 12 weeks?
Oh, yeah.
What evidence did you have for that time frame?
So the 12 weeks is an outcome of working in corporate America, because everybody's operating on a 12-month cycle. And I think the UK is the same. When I was there, they were doing that, obviously. But it is a flawed model. And so we wanted to make something that fit in the corporate model, but didn't, bow down to it. And so that's where the 12-week comes from, because in a sense, it's a quarter. But the reason we didn't call it quarterly planning is because there's a thinking shift that doesn't occur with quarterly planning. Because if you're planning at a quarter, it's a quarter of what? Not a trick question. What's a quarter of?
What's a 1/4 of the whole?
Yeah, it's a quarter of a year, right? So it's annualized
Hang on,
thinking.
I'm trying to think about asking questions, Michael. Don't make me think about maths.
All right. Well, I failed in math, so it's not a big deal. But the 4 quarters imply a quarter of a whole, which is a year. And so my real goal in quarterly planning is still that annual goal. It's still that annual outcome that I'm trying to achieve. Now, I know if you're part of a corporation, that's part of what we have to do to be promoted and all that stuff. But we called it the 12-week year because we wanted people to not have quarterly targets and objectives, but to forget about the year, to not think about the quarter as, okay, I got to get 25% done on my numbers here, because that kind of thinking kind of affects your thinking affects how you act, and it affects your results. And so we wanted people to think like, hey, my success and failure doesn't hang in the balance on the 12-month year. My success and failure hangs in balance on the 12-week year. So 12 weeks, while it fits the quarter model, it's also a different way of looking at time. So we named it the 12-week year for a purpose, but we also wanted to be hired. We wanted to have money coming in, and we knew that most of our clients were large corporations. So we had to conform to their planning cycles in a way, but we didn't want to conform to their thinking. So that's why the 12-week year was 12 weeks. Now, other than that, there's really no scientific background to it, but what does happen in a 12-week cycle is typically in most industries, most businesses, your actions can pay off. If it's a 4-week cycle, sometimes your actions don't pay off until the next cycle, right? So 12 weeks is often long enough for your actions to bear fruit. And if you have a 12-month selling cycle or a 2-year selling cycle, you just have to figure out where you need to be at the end of the 12 weeks against your metrics to be on track with those longer term goal. But you still look at the 12-week goal as your goal, success and failure measure. When you look at your 12-week year goal as your success and failure measure, you're going to get a lot of the value of the 12-week year. If you just see it as quarterly planning rebranded, then you're going to behave in the way you always behave, which is with that annualized thinking. So I know I didn't quite answer your question, but 12 weeks it just fit for our market.
Yeah, your answer was perfect. It makes perfect sense. It's the way that big business do it. All big business does it that way, and big businesses were once small businesses, and they got big by doing certain things.
Yes. Yeah.
It's not rocket science.
Right.
If we want to get big, we've got to follow what the big people are doing, I would suggest. Alrighty. There are going to be some people on this call, Michael, who just can't abide the idea of planning. I meet them all the time, and I'm sure you do. Some people, they just like to go by the seat of their pants, and they'll end up where they end up. And the skeptic in some people will go, that's a lot of work, this 12-week year concept. There are 5 different things that I've got to start balancing all at the same time. If you were going to encourage someone to take a little nibble towards becoming a better planner without having to fully implement the 12-week year from the outset, where would you encourage them to start?
That's a really good question. And I think there's two, from my perspective, there's 2 primary arenas in life. There's the things that I do for my profession, and then there's the things that I do in my personal life for fun. Now, I have one life, and they're blended together, but I mean, I think it's a convenient way of looking at it. So I would set a commitment with myself that said, look, I want to see if this process could work for me in a way that lets me still be the free spirit that I want to be, but also helps me to make more long-term progress and be more intentional around some things that really matter to me. So maybe there's a relationship in my life that's really important to me that isn't where I want it to be. And my, random, and you don't control the relationship, but you don't control anything other than the way you think and you act anyway. So you don't control your results. You just control the way you behave in order to get results. So what are the intentional things that I would want to do on a consistent basis to improve that relationship? So I set a small goal. It's not business, but it's a goal that really would matter to me, and then do those things. We had one of our clients set this tactic in his plan to call my mom every day. Okay, so that's great. I mean, I probably couldn't execute that tactic myself, but they did that, and they did it for more than a year. And he recorded each one of his calls. And then about a year and a half in, his mom passed away. And now the relationship was a lot better. He had so many conversations with her, and he felt so great about what he'd done because they had had a relationship they never had before. And it was just making one phone call a day. And it could be any time during the day. It could have been, in the morning when he woke up, and the evening before he went to bed, whatever. And it changed the relationship. It was very simple. And that was his story about the power of the 12-week year for him. So, it doesn't have to be this huge complex machine, but pick something that's really important. Maybe it's in your business, it could be in your personal life, and just define one action that you're going to take consistently week in and week out, and just make sure you do that. And then if that makes sense, then look at ways you can expand beyond that. I don't think that answered your question exactly, but that's my best advice here in the States this early in the morning.
Mate, I absolutely like it. It speaks so powerfully to me because when I started business coaching 5 years ago, and I was doing these 90-day plans with my clients, we used to have two business goals, a kind of sales and marketing, an overarching goal. Where do I want to be? A sales and marketing goal, which is, ultimately how you're going to get to where you want to go, and then working on the business goal. And then I always used to have a health and well-being goal, a personal development goal, and a relationship goal. And your story has just made me quite sad because over time, as I've realized that people just don't want to spend the time doing it so much, I've shrunk and shrunk and shrunk the goals that we're focusing on down to sales and marketing, working on the business, and then a personal goal, which could be anything. But I think there is such profound power in that relationship element that you just talked about. If I reflect on 5 years of doing it, and I reflect on the relationships that were improved all over the place, the date nights that happened, the time with kids, all of that stuff, that it makes me 100% want to put that one back in because it's a really good example.
Thank you. I just want to share. Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, go. You go.
Well, it's a quick anecdote. We're doing a planning session. Brian and I used to do planning sessions in person, both of us, for 2 days. And one of our clients set a commitment that he was going to have a date night with his wife once a week because he wanted to work on the relationship. And then at the end of that 12 weeks, we came back to the follow-up session, and we asked him how that went. And he said his wife wouldn't go out with him. So you got to start from where you are on some of those relationship things. Just anyway.
Yeah, he probably needed to do some more things before saying let's go out for dinner.
So I don't know if he was kidding. He might have been just kidding, but yeah.
Yeah. Amazing. We've got time for one more question or a point. So Ian Farrington says there aren't that many people really comfortable thinking about the big plan and small detail, let alone at the same time. What's your point? What's your thoughts on that statement?
He's absolutely right. Ian is absolutely right. We teaching people the 12-week year, people get vision. They may not warm up to it, but they get it. They understand, okay, you got to execute. So you work from a written plan and you score your X, got that. You got to allocate time, got that. But what they don't know is often how to take that big goal for the 12 weeks and come and break it down into individual tactics. And I think the detail, that's the biggest challenge we have when we first start people with a 12-week year is how do you create a 12-week plan? And it's difficult for people to think that way, because if you're planning in an annualized environment, you don't get down to the tactics. You don't write down the tactics I'm going to be doing next November and the third week of November on Wednesday, right? You don't write those tactics down because you have no clue. So it's a skill that most people don't practice. So the one biggest challenges with a 12-week year in the beginning is learning how to write a good tactical plan. And that detail can get really crazy because there's like I said, a lot of things you can do. So having the discipline to just narrow it down to the most powerful tactics is important. And then how do you write a tactic, right? It's not just what are the tactics, but how do you write a good tactic? Because they should start with an action verb. They should describe an action that you can take in the week that they're due, and that you don't need pre-work to get done, right? So it's that learning how to write good and effective tactics in a 12-week cycle is a challenge, Ian. But it is something that as you do it, you get better at. It's a skill that can be learned.
Amazing. Amazing. Michael, we are going to switch away from this being about you and me, and we're going to now bring everyone back to the room, because you've got a question that you were going to pose to everyone, and then we'll encourage members of the gang to put their hands up and answer from their perspective. However, before we do that, we've got a little tradition at Networking In where we do a little funny GIF or a little GIF. So I've not told you about this. Sorry, mate. You're on the spot, but you better take part. For those of you who are listening there in the background with your cameras off, it would be fabulous if you would bring your cameras on so we can see your beautiful faces. If you're there and you're listening, please come back just for a second. I promise you it won't be that embarrassing. And yeah, it won't be that embarrassing. And, you know, in the scheme of things, people won't be looking at who's on the screen. So, Michael, some people have done this before, others haven't. But you'll see that I've been making one of these little heart shapes with my hands. Can you make that a heart shape?
Maybe.
Can everyone make that heart shape? How does that work? A little heart shape like that. Can everyone make that? Jared, can I see you making a heart shape? Olga, can I see you making a heart shape? Amazing. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to push the heart towards the camera. So we're going to go like this. Whoop. And then come back out, come back out, come back out. That's going to make a lovely little GIF, my friend.
Thanks,
and I'll send it to you.
All right, cool.
Thanks, gang. Right, Michael, you've got a question for the room.
Yep.
In fact, first and foremost, ladies and gents, can I just get a little round of applause for my friend Michael Lennington, please? Thank you.
Appreciate that.
Amazing.
One of the things that people have a hard time doing is getting started with the 12-week year. When's the best time to start? My view, the best time to start is now. But good news is that we are at the end of a quarter, the second quarter. And I don't like to use that terminology. In fact, we don't use quarters. It's weird, but we just don't use the quarter word very often around ourselves. In fact, we talk about people. We're trying to help people overcome their annual retentiveness. So that's a bad joke. But anyway, the concept of the 12-week quarter is powerful, and we're coming up on this next 12 weeks is the next quarter, third quarter. And so a lot of us are already planning to think about what I want to get done in the next quarter, what didn't I get done earlier, what I want to get done next. So I'd encourage you to take the 12-week year and apply it to this next quarter. So at the beginning of July through the end of September, what is it that you want most? What are the biggest goals you have over that time frame? So figure that out. My challenge you is to figure that out, right? What are the big things that you've maybe been putting off? The big goals that, you know, you really not sure exactly how you want to pursue them, or you've been kind of 1 foot in, 1 foot out, and pull those goals out and set one of those goals, at least one, for the next 12 weeks. So take a few minutes and just kind of think through what would that goal be. I mean, that's critical. What would that goal be? And then what are the actions you have to take to make that happen?
Fabulous. So is anyone feeling brave, gang? I know that there are some brave individuals in this room. I'm looking at you. I know you, and I know that some of you are brave. Who's going to put your hand up and talk about what your goals are for the next 12-week year? Emma, thank you. Nikki, thank you. We'll come to you too. Sue, thank you. Emma, over to you.
So my brain is admittedly a bit frazzled from all that. Thank you. And I've just been on a conference as well yesterday, so I'm surprised that my brain is even in my head. But a lot of the people on the call will know I've been debating writing a book, and I'm going to a big show at the end of the year, exhibiting and speaking. And I've decided that I am going to write a book ahead of that. So I've got to get that done and structured, written, edited, printed in a short amount of time. So I've got to really have like a hyper focus.
Can I make a self-serving comment real quickly?
Of course.
That's what we did. So we wrote our book in 12 weeks, but I just launched a new business with 2 business partners of mine that would help people write their first book in 12 weeks. And it's called the Zero Draft, because Zero Draft takes all the pressure off. So if you're interested in learning about that, just email me at michael@12weeker.com and we can help you do that. So
Okay, thank you.
that's right. Self-serving advertisement. I won't do it again. But
That was, I'm glad you did it, because I was about to do it for you. So, but you did it much better than I would. So everyone's a winner. Nikki.
Hi, yeah, so mine's not a business goal per se. I'm being selfish and happily so, in that my goal for the next quarter or for the next 12-week year is going to be all about me. So I have been put on PIPs, if anybody knows what a protein pump or PPIs, protein pump inhibitors, and I'm on a waiting list for an endoscopy. And my goal is actually to not need that. So I am setting myself the goal that by the end of this 12 weeks that I can cancel me on the waiting list and stop taking the meds. So it's all about self-care.
What a fabulous goal. Thank you for sharing that, my love. Sue.
Hello, beat that, eh? Yeah, I've got I've got a business one, which is I've just committed to a new CRM system that includes automation in the setup. So my big business goal is to set up the CRM and set up 2 automated pipelines within the next 12 weeks. And my personal goals are to have a holiday, to enjoy my holiday, because we all have holiday at this time as well. So actually plan a bit for my holiday rather than just hopefully would like to plan and actually have something nice planned while I'm there rather than just turning up and flopping. And there's also I have a personal health goal in terms of extending my daily exercise routine.
Fabulous. Thank you very much indeed. Fiona.
It is really scary to say this aloud and to commit to it, because I know there are people in the room that are going to keep me to account. So I haven't yet booked a flight and purchased a ticket, but it's available to go to Bali at the end of September for the Professional Speaking Association conference. But I do have the money set aside.
Yay.
So in the 12 weeks leading up to that, so that's professional and personal. In the 12 weeks leading up to that, I'm going to have nailed my online course and launched it.
Yeah. Fabulous. Thank you for that. Renee.
As many of you know, I've got a lot of change coming up. So I'm going to focus on one thing that I've been really procrastinating about, and it's really bothering me that I'm doing it. And that is that I need to get a paid board role. So I've had board roles before in charities where they've been voluntary. In order to get a paid board role, I need to do a board CV. So I've got a snazzy CV for a job, but even though I've not been employed for 17 years, I need to write my board CV. I need to get that done, and I need to back myself that I can get a paid board role and stop being one of those women who don't go for board roles because I'm a woman and I don't think that I fit all the criteria. So I just need to get on and do it.
You got this, mate. Sarah.
Hello. So I've been totally inspired by the story that was told towards the end of your talk, and I am going to try and use the 12-week year to get the 3 clients that my second business needs to make it through the rest of this year, whilst successfully taking ownership of another business. So running the 2 things alongside each other, and I'm going to get those 3 clients by the end of September.
Nice.
Boop, boop, boop. Love that. Nice work. Julie.
Hiya, thanks. That story about the relationship was really ticked some boxes for me. My mother has been diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and I don't know how long my relationship with her is going to last. Her fully knowing who I am, and it's so I'm absolutely committing to phoning my mum every week. I can't think about the business stuff at the minute, but actually that just feels really important because it just keeps drifting and we keep not seeing each other and not, especially now I'm in Yorkshire and she's in Reading, it's a real challenge. So actually I'm gonna FaceTime her every week.
Good
Awesome.
on you. Thank you for that. Barry.
Well, I didn't want to leave it all to the ladies, so I thought I'd
Thank
stick
you,
my hand
thank
up at the
you.
end. Weeks from the beginning of July will bring my 24-year marriage to a close. We've filed for divorce and I'm in the process of selling the house, dividing the family and moving on. And my goal, of course, is to be in a position to manage that both from an income and business point of view, and also the rest of what goes along with separating and dividing up 25 years.
Oh.
So there you go.
It's a gut wrencher. I'm so sorry to hear that, as I'm sure every other person on this call will.
Well, not meant to put a downer on things, but yeah, today's session has helped to at least inspire that determination to make sure that I get out of this the way I want to.
Good man. Good luck. Stay strong.
Thank you.
Got a couple of minutes, gang. And for those of you who haven't got this wonderful book, very shortly I'm going to give you an opportunity to win one. Before we do that, we're going to bring up some resources that Michael has very kindly shared. If you go to 12weekyear.com/resources, some of the really key parts of this book. So Laura, if you scroll down a little bit, or Sarah, whoever is doing it, some of the really key things in this book you'll find in the free sample 12-week plan. So I know Kelly's been all over this website, Michael, recently, and absolutely swears by it. Really great templates in there, guys, for you to go and swipe and deploy in your business or in your life as you see fit. So my encouragement to you would obviously be buy the book. But if you don't buy the book, get the 12-week plan and start making stuff happen. So there we go. Thank you very much indeed. For those of you who are new to networking you've never been before, we've got some great stuff coming up. We've got the Oxfordshire legend Placey Espoge talking on the 3rd of July, 7:30 in the morning. And then we've got Why Customer Experience is Your Secret Weapon with Vinnie Palmer on the 17th of July. And then following on from that, in 3 months' time, in September, we have Richard Wildman. Do you know Richard? Michael?
I thought I did, but I don't know. The last name is familiar, but I don't know him.
So he's a Hall of Fame customer service expert, whatever that means in the States, because we don't have the Hall of Fame in the UK. But it's my understanding is it's kind of a big deal for customer service. He wrote a book on 100 proven ways to acquire and keep clients for life. It's a fantastic book. And going back to the thing I said at the start of this fireside, finding and getting customers is the number one thing that business owners tell the authorities that they want to get better at. So that one is another freebie. Richard's given us his time for free, and therefore we're passing it on to everyone for free. So if people want to come along to that, you are most welcome. I think that just about wraps up this session 1 minute late. So all I'm left to do is thank Michael from the bottom of my heart for coming here and giving us your time so freely and your expertise so freely. You've been a legend guest, mate, and we've loved having you here. So thank you so much for being here, and we really appreciate your time.
Great group. Thank you for having me.
Who's going to win the book? So who have we got? Laura is about to share her screen. There we go. So all of you lovely people who made it to the end, you're now in the draw. Go for it, Laura. Spin the wheel.
Do you feel like a game show host?
Yeah, I'm not as charismatic.
Chris
We
Powell!
got Chris!
Awesome.
Yay! We have a winner. Chris, stick around, drop us your address, and we'll get that over to you. For the rest of you, sorry we didn't see you this morning, but hope that you found huge value in today's session. We love you, and we'll see you again soon. Bye.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Thank you, Michael. Take care. See you soon.
Bye-bye.
We did it.
We made it.
We made it. That was really good.